What's up guys, Victor here, back with another Tackle Tuesday, and in this week's video, let's talk shark bait. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about, and it is probably the most asked question, is what do I use for shark bait? And the answer to that is anything and everything. You have to remember at the end of the day that sharks are very opportunistic feeders, but I have noticed that sharks can be picky at times, just like other fish. And a lot of people say, well, what's the best bait to use? The best bait I have found personally to be the bait that's found at the beach you're fishing at. So if you're fishing in an area with, let's say, you know, offshore, there's been a lot of bonitas around or a lot of amberjacks around, like the one right here. That's what you should be fishing, because that's what those fish have been used to seeing in that week or that, you know, that month they've been feeding on. You don't want to, it's basically matching the hatch, just like when you're artificial lure fishing. Try to fish things that have been in the area. You're not going to want to fish a salmon, a Pacific salmon, in the Atlantic Ocean because they're not used to it. And believe it or not, they have a very good sense of smell and they're not that dumb. You know, when you see them in the Bahamas and they do those giant shark dives on the Discovery Channel and they just have a block of fish, that's completely different than when you're fishing on a beach and you're just putting a bait in the middle of nowhere over sand. Those fish are enticed, and sharks are pretty picky. So that's what I'm going to say about that. So do your research, find out what the sharks have been feeding on in that area, and that's what you should be fishing. Second thing I want to address is, a lot of people ask, fresh or frozen? If I could only fish fresh shark bait, I would only fish fresh shark bait. And it's for two reasons. Number one, when you fish fresh bait that's been nicely iced, it's going to be firm, it's not going to be mushy, and it's just fresh. I mean, what do you want to eat? Would you rather eat a fresh piece of fish or would you rather eat a frozen piece of fish? Now I'm going to share with you guys some things that I have caught sharks on in the state of Florida. And you know, this can extend up the coast. I don't know that much about South Carolina, Georgia, in that area, but in Florida I have caught sharks on ladyfish, jacks, bonita, amberjack, stingray. The list goes on. Basically anything you can find in our state waters. I've caught them on baits this small, I've caught them on baits this big. But one thing I really want to stress is fish what's in the area. If I had to pick 3 baits to fish for the rest of my life, I'm going to give you them right now, and they are laid out in front of me actually. It's going to be stingray, bonita, and amberjack, and I'm going to tell you why. Stingray, number one, being that it is extremely hardy. You can actually fish this bait, go home, refreeze it, and fish it again. And we've done it before where we refreezed it 3 times and it got eaten, and we've caught tiger sharks on it. So stingray for the hardiness, and you just know it's on your hook, and it's a very natural thing. I mean, there's always stingrays cruising the beach, and sharks love stingrays. Secondly is going to be a bonita. I love it because it is extremely bloody, it's very oily, it's a good smell. Sharks love it, they cannot pass it up. I mean, if you cut it open, it looks just like a steak, and they love these things, and it is something that's found prevalent in Florida. There's a lot of bonitas in Florida. But with that being said, it is also tends to be on the mushy side. So bonitas need to be either frozen that same day you catch them, or you need to fish them fresh, because if you leave them in the freezer too long, they get very mushy and they're going to rip off the hook. And then my favorite number one bait that I have caught, the 2 big hammers that I caught off the beach, have been on amberjack. Amberjack is very oily, it is stinky, it is very firm, and for some reason it's sharks, big sharks just love amberjack. Alright, now the last thing I want to talk about is bait size. And Brooke loves it when I stab this amberjack, so I'm going to keep stabbing it with the knife. But let's talk about the bait size and how you should be making the cuts, and that's another thing that's really requested on this channel. Let's talk a little bit about bait size, and I have already made a video on how to hook a shark bait, and that's going to be in the description box below. But right now I'm going to show you how I would approach a bait of different sizes. So right here in front of me I have about a 10 or 12 pound greater amberjack, okay? And I'm going to give you a big tip. If you're fishing off the beach and you're thinking of whether you should fish a smaller bait or a bigger bait, when it's rough out, so I'm talking 2 to 3 foot seas, 2 to 4 foot seas, I will always go with the bigger bait, and here's why. First of all, it adds weight to your rig, so you're not going to be washing around as much. And when it's rough like that and there's a lot of current, your bait tends to get washed out. And what I mean by this is, a lot of times at the end of the night, you'll reel in your bait and you see that half of it is gone, or it just looks very pale. When you fish a bigger bait, you just have more bait to present to the shark, and it lasts longer, especially in rougher conditions. And When it's calmer, I would go ahead and cut something like this in half. So we're gonna be fishing about a 5-pound chunk once you cut it in half. So I would take something like this, and I'm gonna show for you guys exactly how I would do it. I would take it and cut it right down the middle, just like this. And then I would just take it, I would take it and then you crack the backbone just like that. And then I finish my cut on the other side. So now, I made this into 2 baits. And like I said, I've caught sharks on baits this small and this big. The big hammerhead, the 14-footer that I caught off the beach, was on a bait this exact size right here, an AJ tail. Elephants eat peanuts, guys. You do not need to fish a giant bait. The size of your bait is more determined by the conditions you're fishing, because like I said, that rough water, heavy current, it's gonna tend to wash out your bait, so you're gonna want a bigger, sturdier bait. Calm seas, fish something small. Don't waste your bait. There's no point in wasting it, you know? Make your bait go a long way, and just, there's no point in being destructive. If you guys like this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And I'm gonna go ahead and vacuum seal this bait. I got a vacuum sealer, I've been experimenting with it, and I really like how it's coming out. But if you guys don't have a vacuum sealer and you're just gonna freeze your bait, I recommend definitely putting it in a garbage bag or a plastic bag to try to keep it from getting freezer burnt, you know, keep your freezer nice and tidy. But that's it. Hopefully this video helped you guys, because I know this was a highly requested topic. So remember, the big take-home message for this video is, when it comes to picking a shark bait, fish what's in the area. Let's talk shark bait. What's up, guys? Victor here, back with another... Holy moly. Talk about a giant worm.
Wow.